Did you know that Congress just gave permission for your 401k to be invested in the crypto market? Well, they did. Today, we're going to dive into the world of crypto. So, the question that I really have is it a good time for us to start piling into crypto, or should we remain cautious? You guys all know how I feel about crypto. We've been in the crypto space for about 10 years now. And so we'll talk more about it as we go down. But when you start thinking about where things are headed, especially when you're talking about your retirement accounts, it's important for you to actually know what you're invested in. As an investment strategist, one of the first questions I ask when I sit down with a client is, okay, do you have a 401k, IRA, IUL, blah, blah, blah? They'll normally say yes, right? If they work. Do you know what you're invested in? People will start talking about Fidelity and Robinhood and all these other, and I'm like, no, I'm asking, do you know what you're invested in? What your money is invested in, not where it's invested, what it's invested in. And 9 times out of 10, people have no idea. So this is the first thing I want you to do. I want you to get a copy of your 401k, IRA, or IUL statement, and I want you to actually read it. This is supposed to be your forever money, your retirement fund, right? If you don't even understand where it's invested, how do you know that it's growing? Because someone's giving you some stat every year like, yeah, we made 3% on your money. Well, inflation's at 6% now. So actually you lost 3%, right? So we want to know where our money is invested. And so with these laws that Congress is passing, the Genius Act being one, especially when we start talking about stable coins. That's a whole nother conversation. See me October 4th at the Wallet and Wellness Conference, and I'll tell you all about stable coins, all right? But when we start looking at what Congress is allowing to happen, we understand now that most of the financial institutions, Vanguard, BlackRock, JPMorgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all these financial institutions are the biggest holders of Bitcoin specifically, but crypto across the board. So whenever I'm, consulting with someone about crypto, they normally will ask, like, what crypto should I buy? Should I buy Trump coin, or should I buy Deji coin, or Shiba Inu? No. Okay. If you're getting into crypto just now, you need to stick with these top 3: Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Solana XRP. SOL is the ticker for that one, by the way. So, and I say it depends because I want you to go and look at the use case for each one so you'll understand what it actually does. You should never be invested in something you don't understand. Let me say that again very slowly. You should never invest in something that you don't understand. Don't do it because I said it, or Joe Rogan or somebody else out there said, yeah, buy some Bitcoin. No, understand it for yourself. And then if you decide it makes sense for your portfolio, get all you can. But don't do it just because I said it. So listen, start small, okay? Don't be too greedy when it comes to investing in crypto. A lot of times when new cryptos come out, people realize that if it's at a really cheap price, they can spend, sometimes $1,000 and get like 10 million coins. But what happens when that coin crashes? All right. I mentioned Deji coin earlier. That's a perfect example of what we call a pump and dump scheme. Yes, it was a scheme. They put people in place on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube to say the same thing so that the masses would think that they're hearing it from different places, but it really was just the same people, same group of people. And so they said, hey, we're going to buy this Deji coin. It's going to run up to, I think it was like 15 cents or something like that. Well, the people who were the ones that were putting those videos out, they made the money. But when they got to a certain percentage, they sold all of their Deji coin. And they left people who were slow to the game, late to the game, didn't understand what was actually happening. They left them holding the bag. Now Deji coins is like under a penny right now. What you going to do with that? Not even a penny. So I want you to make sure that you start small and do your research. Number 2, diversify. So I gave you 4 coins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP. Read through each one of those. Maybe you don't want to get all 4. Maybe you want to get 1 or 2. But when it comes to crypto, make sure you diversify. because certain cryptos do certain things. Now, I keep referring to Ethereum as a cryptocurrency, but it's technically not. It's what we call a blockchain. So there are certain coins that are out there. For instance, Bitcoin, that's a coin. It can be used and changed for a good or a service. So it's almost like the dollar that's in your pocket. Ethereum, on the other hand, is more like Microsoft, right? So when you buy a computer and it has Microsoft, you can load different apps on top of it that run on Microsoft, but they need that platform in order to do what they do. If I just had a blank computer, I couldn't double click and pull up Excel. Why? It has no graphical user interface. That's what Microsoft is. So Ethereum acts as a blockchain for us so that we can do certain things. You can do contracts, you can exchange money, those kind of things, right? Again, do your research so you'll understand it. I'm just kind of giving you a little tip of the spear there. Next, watch for scams. So I've already mentioned a couple of scams that are out there. Now, the good thing about the regulation that Congress signed is they want to allow certain companies to go into what we would call unsecured coins. Okay. So it has to have certain numbers that it's hit, has to be around for a certain amount of time. Those kind of things have to be in place in order for the 401k to be able to invest in it. I was talking with a friend earlier about this, and I was telling her that we invested in Bito. I'm giving away free game from QP, but it's okay. They'll be okay. BITO was one of the original ETFs that allowed you to gain access to the crypto market, but you're not actually holding any of the digital assets. You're just invested in an account, an ETF that has Bitcoin in it. And so that Bito has been doing very, very well for our portfolio over the last couple of years. But then you have ARKB, that's Kathy Wood's Bitcoin ETF. So it's tons of them that have been out there, but they were just kind of hanging out, sitting on the sideline, waiting for Congress to actually go through with what they said they were going to do. And now that we have, things like the Genius Act and all these other legislations that are coming down the pike, we're starting to understand and realize that although only 1% of 401ks as of today are in these ETFs, in the next 5 to 7 years, we anticipate that number tenfolding. So if you're a young person, you're just now getting into the workforce, this is why it's important to understand what you're invested in. I would say maybe you allocate a little bit more because this is the future of money. We know that now, right? If all of the banks and countries are switching their currencies to Bitcoin, we know it's going to be around unless the whole world falls apart. Then it doesn't matter what you're invested in anyway, right? But knowing what you're invested in will allow you to be able to allocate maybe 10, 15, 20, 25%. I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just saying these are the things that you want to look at if you're a younger person going into the workforce. Now, if I'm someone who's a little closer to retirement age, I may want to pull back on my 401k invested in Bitcoin. Not because it's not going to work out, but because we're still in the early phases. Even though Bitcoin is 12 years old now, we're still in the early phases. So it has times where it will retrace $10,000 in a week. Now, if I'm about to retire, I don't want to see no numbers like that coming out of my account. So that's why I would be a little more cautious if I'm an older person, a little closer to retirement. Now, if you're adventurous and you think you're going to work for another 50 years, even though you're 70, pile into Bitcoin. Maybe it works out for you, right? But those are the things that we want to think about. And then lastly, make sure you're using secure platforms. So a lot of the folks that we have on our team are entrepreneurs, right? And so I'm always telling them about secure platforms. I'm not going to name any names because they don't pay me to advertise for them, but you know who it is. Google, look at what is out there in regards to digital wallets, digital asset holders, brokerage accounts, all of those things. You want to make sure that you're with a company that has a secure platform. Why? Because digital assets are very easily stolen. So you have cold storage, you got off-market wallets, all of those kind of things where you can actually keep your crypto so no one's able to steal it. Speaking of platforms, we were with a company, they filed bankruptcy now, so I don't mind saying their name. We were with a company called Voyager. And so that's where we had all of our digital assets for a time, and they filed bankruptcy. Now, this is the cool thing about about some of the legislation that has been in place for a couple of years. So Congress came through and said, "Hey, if you're a investor in crypto, let's treat it like the FDIC insurance that you have on dollars in the bank." So although that company filed bankruptcy, we were able to get all of our money back. We were actually able to get our digital assets and transfer them to another brokerage, but we didn't lose any of our money. So because Congress has gone through and said, "Hey, let's treat this more like money, like fiat money that we're used to," now it's got some protections for FDIC. So that's a good thing for us. So like I said, more to come on this. I love talking crypto. I love talking AI, but it's important for us to educate ourselves. Don't just be, afraid because you hear something got passed in Congress and not really understand what that means for you and your money. All right, y'all. Love y'all. Appreciate you. We'll see you on the next one. Think and Grow Rich.